Man, I am not gonna lie. I'm a Washington Wizards fan, but I was one of those people that did not believe that this trade was actually happening. I thought it was classic bait for some other team to come snatch Trae Young from the Atlanta Hawks and offer a better deal. But now that the trade is officially done, I feel like it's good to talk about what's actually next for the Washington Wizards and how the rest of this rebuild will look. Okay, so right here we can see that the Washington Wizards are currently 10-26 this season. They are fifth in the Southeast Division and 14th in the Eastern Conference. They actually won their 10th game this year faster than they won their 10th game last year. I think it took them past Valentine's Day last year to win their 10th game of the season. So that's a pretty hard pause for the franchise to try and slow down the winning a little bit. And I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that Trae Young will not be joining the team immediately, and that quad injury is actually a real injury that will keep him out for a little bit longer, which just works out in the Washington Wizards' favor. They're fifth in the Southeast Division. There's only 5 teams in each division, so that tells you what you need to know right there. And they are 14th in the Eastern Conference. And if we scroll down here, we can see that they're actually 4 games above the Indiana Pacers. And man, I knew the Pacers were going to be bad, but not this bad. I thought they were at least going to be a little bit better than the Washington Wizards. So we can see here that McCollum was the leading scorer on this team. So someone is going to have to replace that production since he's on the Atlanta Hawks now, and Trae Young won't be coming back as quickly. And then we have Keyshawn George, who's kind of being that secondary ball handler. Outside of CJ McCollum, he really is the next best facilitator. And CJ McCollum really isn't a facilitator. He just has a really good handle and knows how to get to his spots. Lexar is the second leading scorer. Then you have Keyshawn George averaging 15 points a game. Then you got Bub around 9.5, Chris Middleton 9.8, and Trey Johnson, a rookie, at 12.3. Someone is going to have to step up. And Whitmore is injured. I can see Justin Champagnie getting more burn and upping his scoring output. Hopefully Keyshawn George comes back and he's able to uptick his scoring output. Hopefully all of the young guns that we kept pick up the pace on offense. Even Will Riley step up offensively to pick up the load on the scoring end until Trae Young is inserted into that lineup. And if you look at some of the 3-point percentages, Keyshawn George at 40, CJ was at 39, Alexar's at 36, Bub is at 42, which is crazy. I don't even know how he's sustaining that, but those shots are going in, even if they're not the greatest shots. They've been going in. Oh, he's probably going to hover around that for the rest of his career. The most we can ever hope for Bilal to get to is around 32%. That would be good enough for Bilal at this point. And if he can somehow get to 35%, we'll take it. Trae Johnson, 39.7% as a rookie. And we're not going to count Marvin Bagley. Justin Champagnie could do a little bit better. But overall, yeah, they're 13th at 3-point percentage. Not surprised there. They're middle of the pack in some categories, but most of the other categories, they are bottom 10th. And opponent rankings are even worse. The only thing that they're not bottom 20th in is field goal percentage. And I wonder why that is. We're going to have to break that down in another video. But yeah, as far as opponent rankings, they're pretty bad. Defense is not a thing here, which is also why we're not even really concerned about the Trae Young defensive woes. Somebody on this team already wasn't playing defense. It might have been CJ. CJ might be the worst defender on the team outside of Middleton. And we'll give the rookie some slack. Hell, I think we got rid of 2 bad defenders. So come on, Trae Young, we'll take you. Here are the current depth charts. They are out due to injury. Cam Whitmore's injury is a little bit more serious. Something similar to what Wembanyama was dealing with last year. So he might be out indefinitely. And then Trae Young has the quad injury. So we'll be monitoring that. He may not play until later in the season. I do believe the Hawks host the Wizards on February 24th, and it's supposed to be a special game day. And I might be attending that game. Hopefully, they don't just hold him out indefinitely just to preserve him or preserve the tank. Hopefully they let him play against his former team. That's just going to sell tickets. That's going to be box office for the small markets. But hopefully he gets some burn with the new team before then. And then probably towards the end of the season, closer to March or after that 24th game or after that February 24th game, we'll probably see them give him the phantom injury or find a way to pull him and tank the rest of the season. They will continue to bring Bub off the bench. And Trae Johnson actually was starting over Bub Carrington because of Keyshawn George being hurt. And they just will not bring Bilal off the bench. Bilal is highly coveted on the Washington Wizards. But I imagine a lineup when Trae Young actually joins the team of him starting at the 1. They move Bilal Coulibaly to the 2. Keyshawn George can slide towards the 3 or the 4. And then they'll probably continue to play Chris Middleton just because he's a vet, or hopefully they just buy out Chris Middleton and let him go to a contender, and then we start Justin Champagnie. And yes, it's a small ball lineup, but having Bilal at the 2 guard, Keyshawn George at the 4, Justin Champagnie at the 3, with those 2 positions pretty much interchangeable. And then you have Alex Sarr manning the paint. Even though he does need to work on his strength, Rudy Gobert gave him that advice. I think he's actually going to take it as a fellow Frenchman. That is the lineup that I see, and I think that that is the most beneficial lineup with this roster to cover some of the deficiencies that Trae Young does have. And I think, with the length and tenacity of those 3 wing defenders, and then Alex Sarr holding down the fort on defense, you could see some improvements, especially if there's a lot more, communication and a lot more understanding that, hey, we gotta cover more bases than before. Carrington has been doing a great job off of the bench. His 3-point shot percentage is on fire. Some of the looks are a little bit skeptical, but them things are going in at a 42% clip. He's like the best 3-point shooter on the team, percentage-wise, but he's not the greatest facilitator. He's not the greatest decision maker. He's not very good at getting downhill, which is why I think he will be subjected to a bench role permanently now that Trae Young is in town, and maybe on a day where we have some injury reports, he could slide in as an off guard. And he does bring a lot of other things to the table. And then him and Trae Johnson coming off the bench, that's just the Splash Brothers off the bench. You can't get no better than that. AJ Johnson will probably get some more burn. Him and Malachi Branham are probably going to battle it out for more playing time. The depth chart was pretty awkward with CJ, so that's not really going to go away adding Trae. Justin Champagnie, please keep doing what you're doing. Marvin Bagley, I don't care what team wants them. He only plays good on the Wizards. He clearly loves it here. The team clearly loves him. Do not trade Marvin Bagley at the deadline. Re-sign that man to a friendly contract. Give him a 2+1, please. He's Alex Sarr insurance in case he gets injured. And yes, Marvin Bagley is injury prone himself, but he's just the perfect big man to come off the bench, especially when he's healthy. And then Tristan Vucevic, he's a work in progress, man. Just part of me feels like it's just his mentality, but he's an affordable contract. He's actually on a 2-way contract. Jameer Watkins, very defensive minded. Will Riley, he's probably going to see the most uptick in playing time because he literally can play 1 through 3. Will Riley has the potential to be the lead guard off the bench as well. And then Anthony Gill is Anthony Gill, man. He's just filler on the team, but he'll come in and play a power forward and be a great leader on the team. And I think he's just a great locker room presence to have on this team. The Washington Wizards have a top 8 protected pick. If it somehow falls out of the top 8, and they would have to compete for the play-in tournament for that to even potentially be a real scare. But the way that this rebuild is going, the way that we just invested in Trae Young, even if it's only for a year, we need a top 4 draft pick even more. We just set the stage for us to get serious next year. And in order for us to get serious with Trae Young, who does have his inefficiencies, we need to still keep our top 4 pick and keep our rebuild going while still having something to look forward to in the present. And yes, I said top 4 pick. Everyone thinks this is a top 3 draft. This is a top 4 heavy draft. We're talking about players that can come in and make an immediate impact on your team right away, top 4. And people are excluding Caleb Wilson. And I want to be one of the first people to say that he has KG-esque abilities. At worst, he's a Jaren Jackson Jr. All he needs to do is polish his offensive game. He has a motor. He's a perfect fit next to Alex Sarr. If we don't land a top 3 pick and get the opportunity to get Cam Boozer, Darren Peterson, or AJ DeBosta, I will not be upset if we get Caleb Wilson. I'm actually thinking about going to see him play in Atlanta as well. North Carolina is coming down to play Georgia Tech, and they will be here on January 31st. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to get to see Caleb Wilson in person, especially if he has the potential to be on my team next year. The Washington Wizards are going to do everything they can to keep their draft pick. It's probably the #1 priority, and maybe they had these Trae Young plans in the back of their head, but there's no way they're going to risk losing a top 8 pick in this draft, and we just got to hope that the ping pong balls fall our way and we stay in that top 4 preferably. If we stay in the top 4, the rebuild will be heading in the direction that it literally needs to go, and Trae Young can just make all of these players their best selves while still allowing Trae to be himself. And that's just what Trae does. I think we have to put Darren Peterson 4th on the list. I'm not too keen on Darren Peterson. I see the potential. I see the skills. I see the vision. I just don't think he's as dynamic as the other 3 players. And in Washington's case, you don't really want to have this guard logjam on your roster, have Trae Young, and then come and bring Darren Peterson in. And I get it. You want to take best player available, but I'm not sold that he's the best player available. And then you have people who are just as great in impacting as Darren Peterson, but they also fill a positional need. They also help on rebounding and defense and playmaking. And that's what I think those other 3 players bring to the table. So hopefully we get in a situation where we can get a top 4 pick, and hopefully someone just takes Darren Peterson before we even have a chance to get him so that we can pick from the other 3 guys. I'm not completely sure how I feel about the Trae Young trade. I am concerned about the defense. I really don't like small guards. I was kind of a fan of him before he came here. I would have preferred that he stayed in Atlanta. I would have preferred us find someone that has more of a defensive potential. But luckily, we have been building a roster that, has the potential to cover weak defensive players. I think we can look at the New York Knicks and how they cover for Jalen Brunson. We can look at the Cavs, how they played last year, how they always cover for Darius Garland. And, Steph Curry. He was never the greatest defender. And the way that the NBA plays now was all started by the Golden State Warriors, but the way that the Golden State Warriors play was all started by Mike D'Antoni. The Golden State Warriors just mastered that defensive end, man, thanks to Draymond Green and the key. Washington has the DNA to cover some of the inefficiencies from Trae Young on the defensive end, and then they have the perfect personnel for Trae Young to do what he does best on the offensive end. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I think this was the best deal available, considering we were going to try to get rid of CJ McCollum anyway. It was never meant for him to stay here the entire season. And Corey Kispert was just the perfect candidate to trade to a team that needs everything that he brings to the table. And this is actually one of the best years that Corey Kispert has been having. So shout outs to both of those guys. And yeah, let's just see how this plays out. Thanks for rocking out with me. Let me know what you guys think about the trade and the future of the Washington Wizards, and peace out.